January Cabinet meeting. This is the first one with new microphones. I've already fallen foul of them. I'm told, for those who don't know, when you want to speak, press the red button. So I did it without realising it. Okay, anyway, welcome along. Let's first of all begin with apologies for absence. I don't believe there are any.
No apologies.
No apologies. Secondly, any declarations of interest from Cabinet members? No. Thirdly, public questions and petitions. I'm not aware of any. 4 questions to Cabinet members. I'm not aware of any.
None.
5, the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 13th of December. For those who are present, can we accept these as the correct record, please? In favour? Thank you. So let's move on to item 6, which is Scrutiny Committee recommendations. Lucy, I believe you're going to introduce this, and then I believe you have a couple of questions as well for the debate. So that's all.
Thank you. Yes.
So thank
you. Councillor Stone, I think the questions are on the. There's one question I have. I can just say that I'm pleased to present this report throughout was not able to be here as chair of scrutiny. So there's 2 recommendations, or I'm a member of the scrutiny committee. So the first one relates to work the committee has been undertaking to review its effectiveness. As you know, the committee is seeking support of Cabinet for its proposal to adopt a scrutiny executive protocol, which will outline how the relationship between scrutiny and Cabinet would work. The recommendation is asking you to support the idea of a protocol. The protocol itself will be negotiated with Cabinet and will come back to you for approval. So it's really into the direction of travel. And the other 3 recommendations, I'm sure you know, relate to the Equality Information Report, a really important report, and Councillor Giles has reviewed those, and can propose which to accept. There are 3 recommendations, and they came from a lot of deliberation and scrutiny, include information on the performance of the readers, that's the reducing inequality target areas against outcomes in the next Equality Information Report. 2, explore the potential of reporting the volume of customer contact resolved at the first point of contact. And 3, investigate a process for evaluating the equality compliance of parks and outdoor spaces. So I'm very happy to commend that work of scrutiny to you, and I hope you can accept those recommendations.
Thank you, Lucy. Councillor Giles, do you want to?
Are you responding on the review of the effectiveness of scrutiny committee?
Am I responding on it?
I'm responding in the EIR recommendations.
So I'm responding on the protocol,
Yes.
Which we're happy to accept.
It's fine if you're happy.
Yeah, happy with the protocol. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have to vote.
So we vote on that. In that case, all those in favour? Okay.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Anyone else have a question?
Do it now. Sorry, we got this in the wrong order. So this has got a bit
unusual order, but now I'll step into my other role. As leader of the opposition, I say scrutiny is critical to the successful functioning of the strong leader in cabinet model, such as we have at Norwich. At the training for councillors by the Centre for Public Scrutiny, it was recommended that joint training with the cabinet and scrutiny be undertaken to assist this. And scrutiny agreed as a recommendation. Does the cabinet member support this as part of the protocol provisionally?
in principle, I think I would, but I think we probably need to wait until we see the protocol and then make a decision then. So I wouldn't want to be preempting those negotiations with my own personal opinion. It wouldn't seem to be appropriate. So I think we have that discussion at that time. Does that make sense, Lucy?
In principle, supporting does, yeah.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you to the Scrutiny Committee for considering the EIR and bringing forward these useful recommendations to Cabinet. In relation to first recommendation on including performance on information on the performance of the readers against outcomes in the next EIR, going forwards, data specific to the reducing inequality target areas and our impact in reducing inequalities in those areas will be provided as fully as possible in future EIRs. So we do accept that recommendation. The new corporate plan provides, emerging corporate plan, provides a renewed opportunity to reinforce the readers' work within teams, drawing not only on the NODA report but also on other sources of data, including the State of Norwich report and the Equalities Dashboard. This will enable us to better target resources to where they're needed most. This includes coordinating and maximising advice and support for residents hardest hit by welfare changes, maximising opportunities for residents to access apprenticeships and jobs, ensuring the Council's services, procurement and assets have maximum impact in reducing inequality, and trialling locality-based solutions to improving well-being among disadvantaged groups. In relation to the second recommendation regarding exploring the potential of reporting the volume of customer contact resolved at the first point of contact, this is a very difficult measure to capture. However, as part of the emerging customer and digital strategy 2024 to 2029, the service area are looking at making a change to the customer survey to include a question that asks the customer the reason for their contact, whether they're requesting service or information or a progress chase. And this will provide us with some measure of data as to how many matters are being resolved right first time. Matt, I don't know if you want to say anything more on that or whether that's all okay.
No, that's all okay, that covers it all.
Okay.
Thank you.
And in relation to the last recommendation, in relation to parks and open spaces and accessibility, so back in the autumn, as I answered at scrutiny, we commissioned, procured a company called Community Partnerships to undertake an inclusivity or accessibility audit of all of our play areas in the city. That work has now concluded and will be reported to us shortly, and that will feed into a 10-year play strategy which will sit under the Parks and Open Spaces strategy. Further to this, as part of the developing the Parks and Open Spaces strategy, Paul Rabbits, our interim Parks and Open Spaces manager, has been auditing all of our parks and open spaces for quality and value. And as part of assessing quality, matters relating to accessibility have been considered as part of that and will feed into the audit report which shapes the investment priorities in that strategy. So in short, I propose that we accept all three of the recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adam. Are there any comments or questions from Cabinet? Adam has just said no. Lucy, do you have a question?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll put those recommendations to vote in. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's unanimous. Thank you. Let's move on then to item 7. That's the Equality Information Report 2024. You'll find that on page 17 of your agenda. And Councillor Giles, Cabinet Member for Communities and Social Inclusion, is going to introduce the item. Over to you.
Thank you. It's the first time I've used this, so hopefully it works. It's a good trial.
Multitasking.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yes, it works. Good. So the council publishes the Equality Information Report annually as part of our, in order to demonstrate due regard to our public sector equality duty as set out in section 149 of the Equality Act 2010. The public sector equality duty obliges us to eliminate discrimination, harassment, victimisation and other conduct prohibited under the Equality Act, to advance equality of opportunity between those who share a protected characteristic and those who do not, and to promote good relations between people who share a protected characteristic and those who do not. The Council is also obliged and does through the EIR publish equality data in relation to those who work for the Council, who use our services and live in the city. And the final paragraph just highlights how we take a broader definition of inequality to that in the Equality Act 2010. So we don't only consider those statutory protected characteristics, but also look more broadly at socioeconomic disadvantage. So our current EDI policy details the current equality objectives, and these are to develop a new EDI strategy, and that's the next item on the agenda today, to redesign council services and reshape teams around the needs of users, creating more joined up and accessible services in tune with the changing needs and behaviours of those we serve. To understand our communities and celebrate and respect diversity, and to recruit, develop and retain a diverse and representative workforce. Following the adoption of this strategy today, the strategy team are currently in the process of revising our EDI policy so it contains a set of specific and measurable objectives. These new objectives will then be reported against in the 2024-25 EIR, and then over the course of this calendar year, an EDI action plan will be produced, and the actions set out in that action plan will form the longer-term EDI policy, with outcomes against those objectives reported in EIRs from 2025-26 onwards. This slide highlights how we've continued what we started last year in terms of the report format, in not only publishing statistics relating to inequalities, but also containing a narrative section of the report, setting out the various measures the City Council has taken over the last 12 months to address these inequalities. So, the headlines from the report. The key headline is most of the statistics haven't changed significantly in the last 12 months, and that's largely because a number of the underlying data sources don't report annually, so with the underlying data not changing, a number of the data in the EIR doesn't update annually. A few highlights that have come out are that while median salaries across Norwich have continued to increase for both males and females, there has unfortunately been a steady increase in the gender pay gap within Norwich over the last 3 years. This sits at 17.7%, which is in contrast to Norwich City Council itself as an organisation where we don't have a gender pay gap, it's zero. Over the last year, the Council has seen a 43% increase in the number of translations and interpretations conducted for our customers. Race-related hate crime continues to represent the most frequently occurring form of hate crimes and incidents, and we have seen a very slight increase in the ethnic diversity of our tenants. With regards to the narrative section of the report and and examples of actions the City Council has taken to address these inequalities, I'll just set out some actions under a couple of the protected characteristics as examples. So in relation to disability, paragraph 50 highlights how our home improvement team have delivered 474 grants in the previous financial year to those needing adaptations to their homes across 10 years. Paragraph 36 highlights how we've issued an NSIL, Neighbourhood Community Infrastructure Levy, grant to a consortium of organisations led by Age UK for a phased project to improve the accessibility of the city based on lived experiences and engagements. This complements our annual grant funding to Inclusive Norwich to fund their core running costs. Secondly, in relation to the protected characteristic of race, paragraphs 26 to 28 highlight our continuing commitment to Unison's anti-racism charter that we signed in 2022. Paragraphs 21 to 25 highlight how we've leased additional land to Broadband Housing Association to increase provision of Gypsy, Romany and Traveller accommodation. And paragraphs 92 to 95 highlight the grant funding we issued from our cultural strategy team to support events and activities forming part of Black History Month. Moving on to the next slide. And this slide highlights the negative impacts, the disparate impacts, the cost of living crisis, or the poverty crisis that's been 14 years in the making, has been having on those facing socioeconomic inequality in the city. Impacts of the cost of living crisis include lower income groups spending comparably more of their income on essential goods such as food and energy to heat their homes, disparity between the average health of individuals who are more socioeconomically advantaged and those who are not, and we're seeing those who were previously financially secure being drawn towards or into poverty and financial hardship. And this is demonstrated for a dramatic increase in the number of people seeking debt advice around deficit budgets. This final slide highlights that local government has an important role to play in addressing the inequalities as set out in this report, and that will continue to not only seek to address these inequalities through the services we provide, but also by seeking to support our partner organisations within the VCSE sector and more broadly who are delivering invaluable support and advice to vulnerable members of our community. We will continue to work to reduce inequality and disadvantage impacting individuals in possession of protected characteristics, in addition to exploring ways to reduce other inequalities as set out at the start of this presentation. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Adam. And as you say, this cost of living crisis has been 14 years in the making and is tragically unnecessary and eminently avoidable. And I think also you're right, as you say at the end, that we, in seeking to tackle the issues, we can't do it alone. The drivers and causes are multifaceted. They cut across many organisations' responsibilities, of course. Just one thing I also wanted to say is that the gender pay gap, as you say, 17.7% and rising over the last 3 years, and that's just appalling, isn't it? And we really do need to take that seriously. I don't know if you want to come back on that, but if not, well, I'll just leave that there. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions to Councillor Giles on the report? No. So we'll move over to you. Hello, Lucy.
Thank you. Yes, this is the question. So thank you for the report and for the presentation of it. It's really welcome to go into depth like that. And as you said, it's really important to recruit, develop and maintain a diverse workforce. And this council has done a significant amount of important work, especially 2 years ago, to make sure that the diversity of council employees at least reflected the population of Norwich. and the council was rightly proud and talked about it at the time that it increased the level so that 8% of staff were from a diverse background in the 2023 report from a level of 3.5% in the 2022 report. So a good increase, doubling the number. But I know that in this report we sit back down to 4.9%. I'd like an explanation of what you think has happened as we take those explicit steps to recruit more representative staff. It was a journey we were on. Could we people have left or are less comfortable at declaring their heritage? What do you think is a significant drop and what have you done to investigate it?
Thank you for the question, Lucy. And you know, you're quite right to highlight the issue, and I'm conscious there were requests put in at the scrutiny committee for further information in relation to workforce diversity, and I know that Dawn Bradshaw, our head of HR, I don't think she's here today, has committed to come back on that and provide an update on what measures HR have taken over the last 2 years to increase workforce diversity. I appreciate we still have a significant way to go on such matters. Mike, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
No, nothing specific to add. We haven't got a representative of HR here, have we?
I don't know if anyone from the strategy team is able to respond in any form, or whether we'll take that away and come back to the scrutiny committee as agreed.
I think we need to take it away. Yeah.
Okay. No, apologies for the lack of substantive response there, Lucy.
Okay. If there are no other questions, then the recommendation is to approve the publication of the annual Equality Information Report for 2024. So, all those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item 8, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy 2024-2027. Once again, this is Councillor Adam Giles.
Thank you, Mike. So this is the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy, which was set out as an objective in our EDI policy. I think this is a very high-level document, and as noted, an action plan will be produced over the course of the calendar year, which will detail actions to sit below this strategy. I think in terms of how to think about this strategy conceptually, I think the best illustration is to look at the bottom of page 92 at the diagram, which sets out a donut with an inclusive workplace in the middle, surrounded by accessible services, with a fairer city surrounding that. So the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy outlines how we will work with our partners to make Norwich the best it can be for everyone, recognising that different people and communities have different needs. So it's a city where everyone feels they belong, is respected, has a voice and has the chance to succeed and thrive. We want to be an organisation that makes a real difference for the people of Norwich by showing respect and kindness to everyone, giving the most help to the people who need it the most, continuing to learn and improve, and focusing on prevention and early intervention. And under this, we have 3 key aims, as set out in the diagram at the bottom of page 92. The first of these is a more inclusive place to work. We have 3 priorities under that aim, and they are to ensure that the profile of our workforce broadly reflects the city's population and the local labour market, to continue to develop inclusive working practices and policies, and to support colleagues to develop the knowledge, skills and confidence to consider equality in all their work. In relation to the second aim, for our services to be more joined up, accessible and inclusive, the priorities are as follows: to improve a range of communication platforms and channels to enhance accessibility, including for those facing digital exclusion, to undertake service-specific equalities reviews so every service reflects our ambition, and to ensure that our knowledge about the people and communities we serve informs our service planning and that their voices are heard. The third aim is for Norwich to be a fairer city, where people facing inequality can share in and contribute to the city's success. There are five priorities rather, sitting under that final aim. And that is to ensure that EDI outcomes inform wider council policies, strategies and programmes, to focus our efforts on the places and communities in the city that face the biggest disadvantages, improving our use of data to help us do this. And we talked earlier about reducing inequality target areas in relation to that. To develop our leadership capacity and capability around equalities, to continue working with partners to influence investment and target resource, and finally to mitigate the disproportionate inequalities of climate change impacting specific sectors of the economy. To reiterate, there are three elements to the strategy. In the middle, an inclusive workplace, surrounding that services that are more joined up, accessible and inclusive, and surrounding that working with partners to build a fairer city. So I recommend this strategy for adoption and look forward to working with all councillors in producing the action plan, which will set out the details under this strategy. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. As you say, a high-level document. The action plan is where the detail will be, but an excellent document and excellent aspirations as well. So thanks for bringing it. Thank you to the officers who supported you in this. Are there any comments or questions? Matthew and then Beth.
I'd just like to propose a very small amendment. I have discussed this with Councillor Giles, so it's hopefully not controversial to anybody else. On page 90 of our pack, it would be inserting an additional sentence at the end of the paragraph, which reads, as well as a firm commitment to deliver our legal duty under the Act regarding these characteristics, our aspirations go further to include refugees and migrants and those who have served or continue to serve the armed forces and the socio-economic and health inequalities resulting from deprivation. The amendment would be to add a sentence after that stating Norwich City Council is committed to ending the class ceiling which creates structural injustices, socio-economic barriers to ambitions and disrespect for the value, dignity and voice of all, regardless of background and or occupation. So that we are in line with what the original wording of the Equality Act should be.
Okay, fine. Is there a seconder for that? Beth has seconded it. Are there any questions to Matthew on that? Is everybody clear what's being proposed?
Just to say, I worked with Matthew on that amendment and I'm happy to accept it.
Okay. And Lucy, do you have any comment or question?
Thanks. Yes, I had on the report.
On the report, but not on this amendment. Okay. So we'll come back to you on the report. So we'll take this first and then come back to you. So this is just on this specific amendment at the moment. So if everybody understands what's being proposed, all those in favour?
Thank you.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Right. So thank you for that. We'll go back now to the overall report as amended. So are there any comments or questions from Cabinet colleagues? Beth?
More than anything, just to comment, it was really nice to see about mention of service-specific reviews and the idea that equality is something we need to be looking at across an organisation. It needs to be owned by everyone and can't just sit in a bubble. So I'm really just, I suppose, comment, just looking forward to the action plan that will give us more detail. But I think also just really to sort of congratulate that it shows we really are on a journey. There is a lot of continue to here, which is positive of the big steps that have already been taken, but also acknowledging the work that's still to do.
Absolutely, thank you, Beth. Lucy, you have a question.
I do, yes. Thank you very much for the report and the strategy. Very much support it. Interesting and yeah, I'd like to look at that in more detail and know why it wasn't in there already. But I understand that officers are currently working out the new objectives to produce an action plan, which is obviously key to make the strategy come alive. And that would be absolutely key. It'll be paper if it doesn't have an action plan. Would it be possible to consider using a steering group with external stakeholders who meet and are presented with a high-level overview? It's different to stakeholder engagement, which you would expect. It enables input from expert bodies who help steer more closely how things are done through the life of the development of the action plan. The benefits are that it gives the approach some more legitimacy, increases the legitimacy, as those bodies can effectively represent lived experience. They can give advice on specific risks, they can challenge, they can champion, and hopefully they can give buy-in to the strategy in the long term in an organised way. It wouldn't be resource intensive. You can have 2-hour meetings, 4 of them across the year, and it could be worth it for this extremely important development topic. Would you welcome exploring the use of such a group to strengthen delivery of this really very important action plan?
I think it's critical that we engage organisations representing those both with lived experiences of all of the inequalities experience, and also for those organisations that support and advise them, and that will be done. That will be done through engagement with our existing financial inclusion consortium that we fund. And through the bodies that exist to represent the voices of those on those various protected characteristics within the city. I'm not sure about creating a new body, but we can certainly look into the viability of that. But it's clear that extensive engagement, not just within the council, but also with our partners, is going to be absolutely critical in shaping what is in the action plan.
Thank you, Adam. So, if there are no more questions, let's move to the recommendation, which is on page 79. And it's recommended that we agree the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy for 2024 to 27, now as amended. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you, that's unanimous. So let's move on now to item 9, which is the Greater Norwich Joint 5-Year Infrastructure Investment Plan 2024 to 2029.
Mike, not got your mic on.
Oh, sorry.
That's strategy leaving.
Okay. Welcome Ben to the table. There are 3 elements to this rather detailed and sometimes technical report on the Greater Norwich Draft Joint 5-Year Infrastructure Investment Plan for 2024 to 2029. First, an alteration to the way the project team is funded and the approval of a new programme management fee within the draft, to be funded from the Infrastructure Investment Fund, which is the Poole Community Infrastructure Levy. This will supplement the cost of the Greater Norwich project team, which is instrumental in driving forward the provision of infrastructure across the whole Greater Norwich area. The second element is a deed of variation to the partner drawdown and borrowing authorisations agreement, which was originally signed by partners in 2015. This is because we need to progress the establishment of the City Deal Borrowing Loans Fund. And thirdly, the approval of the draft 5-year infrastructure investment plan for 2024 to 2029, which includes the proposed 2024-2025 annual growth programme And in that, I would specifically draw your attention to the excellent news of the funding for the Eden Park project and the investment in Slough Bottom Park. First, under new allocations, there is a £330,000 contribution towards the City Council's project in Eton Park, which will include renovations, changing rooms in the central pavilion, the installation of environmental technologies including solar panels, heat pump and LED lighting, improved signage and 10 cycle storage racks at several locations throughout the park. This will make the facilities compliant with Football Association regulations and accessible to all, as well as improving the building's energy efficiency. Under previous allocations, it includes the allocation of £850,000 for the regeneration of Slough Bottom Park, acting as match funding for the City Council's successful application for levelling up funding. This significant project will deliver a linked set of community facilities, including a new 3G football pitch, league standard changing rooms, a multi-purpose pavilion and cafe, an upgraded play park, a refurbished and upgraded BMX track, storage facilities, an update to Dolphin Path and other park infrastructure, including car park and path resurfacing, lighting and signage. These important projects demonstrate this administration's commitment to our wonderful parks and green spaces and to investing in really great facilities for our residents to enjoy, while at the same time allowing them to exercise and improve their general health and well-being. Personally, I'm really excited about this continued investment in the improvements in our parks, but I'm also excited by the many other proposals which are contained in this report. As I say, it is quite high level in places, it's also quite technical in places, so I'm very glad that Ben is at the end of the table to answer any technical questions that may be beyond me. But I commend the report to you and the recommendations. So, are there any questions on that? Anne?
Thank you. I'm obviously very pleased about the investment in our parks. I just want to say in relation to the Eden Park scheme, so we're City Council is putting £80,000 into the scheme of our capital funding to match fund the GNGB. And I also want to thank both Friends of Eton Park and the Eton Park Community Centre Association, who both made, well, small relative to the money put in by us, but significant by their accounts contributions into this project.
Excellent, thank you, Adam. Are there any comments? No. Did you want to add anything, Ben? I should have asked you. Do you want to add anything?
No, that's all right. I think you summarised it quite well, and obviously there's content in the paperwork.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Okay, Lucy, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the report. And we did actually submit quite a range of questions already to officers and had responses on all of them. So thank you very much for that. There's one that I wanted to ask particularly here, which is just relate to it. So within the city walls, the city centre has a shortage of green public space and open space, and existing public spaces, green spaces within the city are coming under heavy pressure. At the same time, the resident population in the city centre has grown considerably. The Greater Norwich Local Plan has not allocated land in the city centre for new green space. Would the City Council consider allocating an area of land in the city centre in its ownership, such as part of a service car park or elsewhere, for developing as a green open space and nominate that as a future infrastructure investment fund project? Like board and council use strategic sale to create a new country park, of course. But would you consider that? Would you be interested in that?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you, Lucy. As part of developing the Parks and Open Spaces strategy, in addition to looking at the quality of our parks and open spaces, also assessing the quantity, both the overall quantity and the quantity in different locations. And I think the audit findings of that will be helpful in steering our planning department in relation to such matters, and I think that will come out and be discussed in due course. What I would say is in relation to within the centre boundaries. We've, appreciate these are existing open spaces, but we've in the last 6 months upgraded the play area on St George's Street. Hopefully we'll be out on site in September to implement the GMGB upgrade project to Castle Gardens and Whiffler Theatre. And we've also got enhanced green infrastructure funding from Western Homes, which will go towards Gildencroft Park. So we are investing in our open spaces within the city centre walls and continue to do so. But in terms of looking at any shortages in relation to quantity, I think it would be wise to wait for the outcomes of the quantity order before making any commitments on that regard. Thanks.
Yeah, so it's not a no, but it's actually, it needs to be considered in the round. I guess is a summary of what you said, yes. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from colleagues? If not, we'll move straight to vote on the recommendation, which is that we adopt the Greater Norwich Joint 5-Year Infrastructure Investment Plan. All those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Thank you, Ben, for all the work you've done on that. So we move on to item 10, compliance work updates. That's a housing matter. That's you, Beth.
It is. Thank you. So really pleased to be able to bring this update on health, safety and compliance in our housing stock. It's been more than a 2-year journey to compliance, and there's been an enormous amount of work that's gone into this to get us to this point where shortly before Christmas we were able to announce that we've been informed by the regulator for social housing that they've taken this decision to discharge the voluntary undertaking and remove the regulatory undertaking. Regulation notice, sorry, my notes are wrong. This report sets out the new internal governance arrangements, and this includes the oversight that will continue for compliance, and most reassuring for me as the portfolio holder that I will continue to receive monthly performance data on compliance. It's essential that we maintain ongoing scrutiny of this area and continue and to embed this as business as usual. The report clearly sets out the progress we've made to date and the areas that we're going to continue to work on, particularly, for example, the door replacement scheme that's due to commence shortly. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all those involved in getting us into such a solid position, and look forward to welcoming new members of staff who will continue with us on this journey to continue to ensure we have the safe accommodation our residents deserve.
Thank you, Beth. Are there any, and really good progress, as you say, are there any questions to Beth or comments on the report from colleagues? Everybody seems content. Lucy.
Thank you, yes. It's good to see that this is coming to an end. I remember the day we called into the urgent meeting and the list of problems was given to us, and it was shocking that could have come to pass. It was obviously essential that the council make the homes safe, and the list of failings in all the areas, including gas, electricity, fire safety, was really shocking, and it built up over a long time. And the safety of the tenants is our responsibility, obviously, as a landlord. It's now clear from this report that it will have cost the council a clear £750,000 to set right, and I understand that no formal action has been taken legally. So, finally, will your administration take responsibility for this cost, borne by Norwich citizens from serious failings which have happened over years on your watch?
Come back on that. Leah.
I thought I'd just pick up on that legal point there. So what I just want to confirm is the position, as I believe we have communicated, is the question was, have any residents or other parties taken legal action against us? And the answer is absolutely not. So it's not the case that we haven't contemplated responsibilities, it's the case that no one's taken action against us.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you. So, shall we move on then to the recommendation? The recommendation, Beth, is
So we're asking members to make the new internal governance arrangements that are set out in this.
okay. Fine. So, all those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you. Unanimous. So we now come to the utilities contract. That's on page 117 of your pack, and this is a mixture of Paul and Emma, I believe. I'm not sure who's going to lead off. Paul.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, having been in my role for 8 years, obviously the question of the tendering part of utilities come up on a regular basis. But obviously, in many ways, it's more important now than ever, as we have seen in recent years, due to events completely out of our control, the war in Ukraine, the problems in the Middle East, and obviously now seeing the problems in the Red Sea, with the Houthi attacks on shipping, an increase in costs related to energy. Now, the recommendations for this report are as follows. We agree to enter into an agreement with the Crown Commercial Services to enable the Council to access their framework on utilities. Secondly, to call off the framework referred to in 1 to secure electricity from October 24 by entering into an interim contract for a period of October 24 to 6 months until March 25, and then the fixed annual contracts from April 25. Or welcome the framework referred to in 1 to secure gas to align both the electric and gas contracts to run for a fixed 12-month period from April 25 to March 26. Fourthly, agrees to continue to procure green electricity as part of the above arrangements, and I believe that Hampton will further expand upon this report.
I will just briefly highlight some of the climate implications of this decision in that continuing to procure green energy electricity is going to be essential if we want to meet our operational target of net zero by 2030. That's going to be virtually impossible if we don't continue on that path. Opting green electricity, as the report notes, will save an estimated 1,635 tonnes of carbon dioxide based on consumption rates and DEFRA's latest emissions conversion factors. So saving this amount of carbon for £70,000 is highly cost effective, and not opting to continue to procure green electricity would increase our emissions by about 45%. So very pleased we're continuing down that route.
Excellent. Thank you both for the report. Mark is at the table. Did you want to add anything?
No, I think it's all covered in the report, but I have to take questions.
Okay, thank you for the work you've done on this. So, are there any questions or comments on this? It looks really good. Lucy?
Thank you. Yes, a quick question. I'm on page 123. So it's reducing 1,635 tonnes of carbon to £70,000 is highly cost effective, working on carbon cost effectiveness of £41 and 5 pence a tonne of CO2. What is the figure of 70,000 referred to? Is the difference in price between 100% renewable electricity provider and a conventional one? Sorry if you just covered that, Emma, but I just wanted to clarify that point.
I believe it's the estimated additional cost of the council procuring green electricity, essentially, over the purchase costs that are outlined paragraph 20 onwards.
Okay, thank you. That's correct, I've been assured.
Yes, it's Mark's essentially saying that the £70,000 is actually from paragraph 23, and Mark's entirely right. That's the additional cost we pay for green electricity.
Thank you, Leah. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, can we move to the recommendation? There are 3 recommendations on page, beg your pardon, 4 recommendations on page 117. All those in favour? That's unanimous again, thank you. So now we move, this is Paul, I think Treasury Management mid-year review, and then after that we've got the minimum revenue position policy change. So over to you, Paul.
This report provides details of the first quarter and mid-year review of Treasury activities for the financial year ending on the 31st of March this year. Highlights compliance with the Council's Treasury Management Strategy and policies which have previously been approved by the Council. This report was considered by the Treasury Management Committee on 23rd of November and noted and endorsed the report for consideration of Cabinet and Council. The report recommendations ask Cabinet to note the Treasury Management activity undertaken in the first 6 months of this financial year, and that this report be considered and agreed by full Council. The Council has adopted a new code of practice for Treasury Management in the public sector and Prudential Code, capital finances in local authorities, and operates its Treasury Management activities in compliance with those codes. Codes place responsibility on members to review and scrutinise Treasury Management policy and activity against group indicators. This report sets out a range of indicators and highlights that there are no breaches to alert you to. Since the start of 2023, the Bank of England has raised the base interest rates from 4% to 5.25%, the largest increase of 0.5% made on June 22nd. The base rate of 5.25% has now been held since early August and confirms the Bank of England's narrative to financial markets that the UK interest rate will remain high for longer. Whilst headline inflation continues to fall, and of course it has actually picked up again in the latest figures, it is still double that of the Bank of England's target rate. Council remains significantly internally borrowed, and cash balances available for investment will continue to enable the Council to maximise its returns in the current interest rates environment, as set out in the Treasury Management priorities for the investment of the Council's day-to-day cash balances, and are to safeguard security, ensure that liquidity is maintained, and then to achieve the aim. The Council's Treasury Management activities continue to be monitored against the wider economic backdrop in accordance with the asset services and the Council's Treasury Management strategy. I am pleased that this report illustrates the positive mention of our cash balances and the endorsed recommendations proposed that were approved by the full Council. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. So, for those who were, or even those who weren't, but those who weren't at Treasury Management Committee, are there any comments or questions or queries on the report from colleagues? No, very technical report. Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It's a very technical report, but a very important one. And I would like to ask a question about how you consider the impact of investment. I think you've had these discussions a bit in the committee, but I wanted to ask if it would be appropriate to present the net present value, which is the difference between the present value of cash inflows and outflows over a period of time used to analyse the profitability of a project or investment and compare its rate of return with its discount rate, so adjusting for risk and including the carbon price. That is something we talked about in the task and finish group, scrutiny task and finish group, to have a carbon price analysis added to things. I'm not sure whether decisions are based on NPV and whether you could consider a sensitivity analysis using the carbon price, or whether that's not done in Treasury Management. If it's not, would you be open to include ESG as a fourth criteria, with the monetisation at least against carbon impact presented in decision making, if only as a sensitivity analysis and decision making tool?
Obviously, that is a question of high technical nature. I would suggest that if Neville might like to respond, and I might come in later.
Yeah, happy. I mean, in terms of net present value, most of the investments are very short term, so there wouldn't be very much difference in showing that. I've never come across a carbon measure, but what I would say is that, again, most of the investments are in day-to-day day-to-day cash, so don't have an impact on either carbon or non-carbon investments. The only exception to that is the money that we put in our money market funds. So we've got 2 out of the 4 money market funds that are very clear ESG slant to them, both of which are full at the moment. So we do already take account of ESG entitlements in that investment strategy.
Thank you, Nev. Paul, did you want to add anything to that, or are you content?
I think we get it's not asked the question.
Thank you. Okay, shall we move to the recommendation, please, on page, well, they're in the supplementary agenda, aren't they? Yeah. Okay. So all those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous? Thank you. And then following on from that, we move to the minimum revenue position, the MRP policy change 2023-24.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report provides details of the proposed change to the council's approach to charging a minimum revenue provision in accordance with statutory guidance, which is designed to ensure that resources are available to meet the repayment of borrowing. This report was considered by the Treasury Management Committee on 23rd of November, who noted and endorsed the report for consideration at Cabinet and Council. The report asks Cabinet to recommend to the Council the adopt the policy changes set out in the detailed report which is appended. The Council has engaged in asset services, the Council's Treasury Management advisors, to complete a review of its policy. The review has considered the technical and regulatory guidance and has identified a prudent policy changes the Council can adopt to meet its requirements to charge a minimum revenue provision, but reduce the financial impact on the medium-term financial plan. Revised policy statements set out in Appendix A details of the financial impact over the life of the policy, which is shown in Appendix B. Council Treasury Management activities continue to be monitored against the Council's Treasury Management strategy in accordance with advice from the Asset Services. I am pleased that this report illustrates a positive change in the policy and would endorse the recommendation for approval by the full Council.
Thank you, Paul. Again, a sort of technical report. Are there any questions or comments from colleagues from Cabinet? No, everybody's content. Lucy, did you have any question or comment on this?
No, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move to the recommendation. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Item 14, the draft Treasury Management Strategy has been withdrawn.
And it'll come to February as part of the main budget papers.
Okay. That's the bit I forgot. You did tell me I had to say that.
I did.
It'll come to February as part of the main budget papers. So we now move on to item 15, exclusion of the public. I just think we need to vote to adopt that, don't we? All those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you.